Hey there, these things right here, they're German, they're amazing, and they're called Spaetzle. I'm going to show you 3 ways how to make them right now.
Hi, I'm Uncle Carl, foodie and world traveler. After traveling most of my life, I've realized wherever you are in the world, folk are just folk. What makes us the same outweighs what makes us different. And the best way of seeing that is by sharing some of their culture over a hot, soulful meal. Come join me as I recreate some of the dishes that I've experienced from around the world and occasionally go visit them to see the amazing differences and despite those differences, realize how similar we all are. Thank you for joining me on this trip and welcome to Twin Moons Tavern.
So first of all, shout out to Chrissy for requesting Spaetzle. Spaetzle is somewhere between a German noodle and a German dumpling, I guess a dumple. There's lots of different ways to make it, lots of different ways to eat it, and a lot of that is regional. I've covered 3 basic ways here. We have just your regular plain Spaetzle here. Serving this, you would normally have a plate full of this, a couple ladles full of goulash on top of it, or some other kind of stew-like thing. And then we have sauteed. Once they've been cooked, I quickly saute them, toss in some bacon and parsley, and that's usually as a side dish, like with some schnitzel or something like that. And then here we have Kaese Spaetzle, which is cheese Spaetzle, Germany's version of mac and cheese. If you're a fan of mac and cheese, you'll love this. It will definitely kick it up a notch for you. Let's get to it.
First, we're going to start off by cracking 3 eggs into a bowl, and then 2 ounces of milk, 2 ounces of water. Adding a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And now we're just going to beat all that together while I'm wondering what the hell I did with my whisk. Once those eggs are beaten, I'm going to start adding flour, about 9 ounces. You're going to keep on working your batter until it comes together to look something like this. You want it pretty runny but still firm enough where it holds together somewhat. If the way you have it is too runny, add a little bit more flour. If it's too thick, add a little bit more milk or water. And this right here looks about right. Once you've mixed the batter, you're going to go ahead and let that rest for a while. Once that's resting, I'm going to go ahead and prep all the ingredients I need for all the different versions I'm making. First, I'm going to chop up some parsley. We're going to go ahead and leave the parsley pretty big, so you want to go ahead and remove any stalks that made it through. And then just give it a rough chop. Again, we're going to leave it pretty big for presentation purposes. We're just going to run our knife through it a couple of times just to make it a more manageable pile. And then the old rocky choppy until you get what you want. Next thing we're going to prep is our onions. This is going to be for the cheese Spaetzle. As always, take an onion, chop off the top, cut it in half, peel it, get yourself a good claw position so you don't cut off your fingers, and then just slice it through. I got myself some good thick cut bacon, and I'm just dicing it up. This is 1.5 pounds, which is way more than what I need, but once I have the bacon cooked, it gives me something to snack on while I'm making everything else. Now we're going to our pan, which is preheated and starting to smoke, and just dumping in all our bacon. We're going to occasionally stir it up and just keep on cooking it on a medium-high heat until it's done. You know it's close to being done when it starts foaming up like this. Strain the bacon out from the rendered fat. Don't do this over the stove like I'm doing here. It is dangerous, particularly if you have a burner on or if you have a gas pilot light. I'm just doing it over here because I don't feel like moving the camera around to take this shot. Then in the pan that you just cooked the bacon in, put a tiny bit of that bacon fat in there and throw in your onions. You're going to cook these until these are good and caramelized. The length of time that this is going to take varies greatly on how dark you want them. They're going to be at least 30 minutes, as long as 45. Any recipe that tells you it takes 10 to 15 minutes to caramelize onions is lying. It took me about 35 minutes. Now that we've got all our pre-stuff done and our batter is rested, we're going to go ahead and make the Spaetzle itself. I'm going to show you 2 different techniques. One is old school and one is very old school. Get yourself a pot of salted boiling water and then put a glob of the batter on a cutting board, and with a bench scraper or a knife, You're just going to kind of separate a little bit at a time and just kind of slide it into the water. This is extraordinarily time consuming. This is a very, very old school way of doing it. This does make for bigger pieces and far more irregular pieces. In my opinion, the final product this way is my preferred. That being said, it is a royal pain. I'm going to show you another way that's much easier. Get yourself a colander and then just push it through with a spoon or a spatula or something. As it drips through, it'll naturally break off, and the spatula will end up being all kinds of different sizes and shapes and pretty irregular. Not quite as irregular as if you're doing it with a cutting board, and they're much smaller pieces, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with. It's the way my sister makes it, it's the way my mom makes it, it's the way my grandma made it, and it's really good. Now I'm holding the colander in the air so that you can see what's going on, but this is really difficult. So what you want to do is actually lean the colander up on the ridges of the pot, but in a way where the colander is at least a few inches above the boiling water. Now there's a third method that you can use to form these spaetzle, and that's with a spaetzle press or a potato ricer. I don't have either of those, but my sister now uses a spaetzle machine, and I don't think there's anything I can bribe her with to let it go. Once the spatula has been cooking for a few minutes and it's floating, go ahead and pull them out with a strainer. You're probably going to have to do this in batches, particularly if you're making a big meal for a family. It might seem like a time-consuming pain, but it really isn't that bad, and it is totally worth it. Homemade spatula is way better than store-bought, and it's way easier than homemade pasta. Once it's strained, the plain version is done. You can go ahead and put that on your plate, put a little goulash on top. That is the stuff. But goulash with spaetzle, that's a whole video by itself. Next, for the sauteed spaetzle, go ahead and heat your pan. Normally this is done with butter, but it just so happens I have some bacon fat, so I'm going to use that as my cooking fat. Once the pan is hot, go ahead and put in some of that spaetzle. Give it a toss. Crumble in some bacon. Give it another toss. And cook it for a couple minutes until the spatula starts to brown. And this is sauteing, occasionally juggle it around in your pan. When you're about done, sprinkle in some parsley, turn off the pan, and then go ahead and pull it. Cheese spatula from this point on is pretty easy. Get yourself a bowl of spatula, pour in some shredded cheese. Traditionally this is done with like a Swiss or Gruyere or something like that. I'm using Gruyere because I'm a big fan of it. But ultimately, any cheese that melts well, you can go ahead and use. Once that cheese is stirred in there, I'm going to go ahead and put a layer down onto this pre-greased pan. Sprinkle some more Gruyere on top. Another layer of spatula. Another layer of Gruyere. And totally optional, and because I have it, I'm putting some shredded Parmesan on top of that. I'm going to put this into a preheated oven at 400 degrees for about 30-35 minutes. That's really the minimum time you want to go. Leave it in as long as you need to get that golden brown crunchy cheese that you like. Pull your cheese spatula out of the oven and go ahead and plate yourself a bowl. So there you have it. The plain spatula, the sauteed spatula, which I'm going to garnish with a little bit more bacon and some parsley, and then with the cheese spatula, garnish it with those grilled onions. They really pair well with the Gruyere. Some chopped chives, and there you have it. 3 ways to make spaetzle. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe, share, and like. And we'll catch you next time here on Twin Moons Tavern.